If you want to get started in Pathfinder, but always found the character creation part kind of intimidating, it's pretty deep, it's pretty involved, there's a lot to it, but it's so much fun to do, and you can really create a unique character. So today, we're going to go over the ABC and Ds of character creation in Pathfinder. And I'm Don. I'm trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get started. Within Pathfinder, there actually is a concept called the ABCs of character creation, and it's simply by the titles of the different categories as you go through the process. It's A for ancestry, B for background, and C for class. Now, the D is a little bit funny because you can forget pretty easily that you get 4 free ability boosts. So the D kind of stands for don't forget those 4 free ability boosts at the end, but we'll get to that. This is going to be part of a series. I'm going to do 3 videos. I really tried to do a video and kind of put them all into one, and it wound up being a bit much. So we're going to just, at this particular video, we're going to cover the first part. The second part of the video is going to be creating a character on paper. And then the third part is using one of the tools online in order to help you create a character. Both of those have their advantages and disadvantages, and we'll get into those when we get to those sections. First, we're going to start off with ancestry. So your ancestry is basically what the base character you want, whether you want a dwarf, whether you want an elf, whether you want a human or a goblin or a gnome or a halfling. These are the ancestries that your characters can have. They all have their benefits, and they all have their things that detract from some of their abilities. And it's also very important to pick the right ancestry for how you want to role play your character. That is a really integral part of what you do in the game and how they're going to interact with the world. So it's something to definitely put a lot of thought into. However, I do want to cover what you get with each one of the ancestries, but in a more general sense. We're not going to go into the individuals. Those are available in the core rule book, online, Articles of Nethys. So we're just going to cover kind of what they all have in common. First thing I wanted to cover is that all your ancestries come with 2 ability boosts and 1 flaw. Except for humans. Humans are kind of a base class, and they only get 2 ability boosts, but they do not get the free ability. Those are a lot of words I just threw at you, so let's take it down and break that down a little bit. So if you are a dwarf, we'll pick a dwarf. We'll start with that. So a dwarf is going to get 2 ability boosts. They're going to get a +2 to their con, and they're also going to get a +2 to their wisdom. Now, the ability flaw they're going to get is they're going to get a -2 to their charisma. If you were using a human would only get 2 ability boosts, and they would not have that flaw. However, you do get 1 free ability boost. And when I say a free ability boost, that means that you can add +2 to any one of the abilities that your character has, be that strength, dex, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. You can add that to it. Now, when I'm saying ability boost, each ability boost gives you a +2. So keep that in mind. It'll kind of come in handy a little bit later if you remember that. A little bit of a glossary there. The next thing you're going to get from each one of your ancestries is you're going to get your base hit points. In our first example, we use dwarf. A dwarf is a +10 to their hit points. So those are the hit points that they have as a level 1 character with no class and with nothing else. And that is basically every ancestry has their own. It's available on the description of that particular ancestry. The next thing you're going to want to take note of is the size. Dwarf, in this example, is a medium. You're also going to get your movement speed. Once again, we'll stick with the dwarf here, and we're going to say that his speed, as you can see on the list here, is 20 feet. You will also get any type of visual abilities they have. It can be none, it can be low light, or it can be dark vision. Dark vision is available to a dwarf, and dark vision, I believe, is only available to a goblin and dwarves. So keep that in mind. You're going to write that on your character sheet a little bit later, and we'll go over that when we get into those other videos. And after you do those basic stats for all the ancestries, you're going to pick a heritage. Now, each particular ancestry has its own list of heritages that give you your benefits and skills, things that you're going to want to take, as well as a feat. So the heritage we're going to use for our dwarf is we're going to go ahead and say he's an ancient-blooded dwarf. And as an ancient-blooded dwarf, what he gets out of that particular feat that he selected is he gets a reaction that is called Call on Ancient Blood. And that gives him a reaction for rolls against magic. So he has a little bit of magical resistance. And that's a pretty good starting one. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to pick your ancestry feat. Now, the ancestry feat, once again, for each particular ancestry is a little bit different, the list you get. Sticking with our dwarf here, though, we're going to go ahead and pick dwarf and weapon familiarity. And what that does is that gives him, starting out, trained with battle axe, trained with pick, and trained with warhammer, and access to all uncommon dwarf weapons. When I say, kind of threw a new term at you, so let's go ahead and cover what I mean by trained. So within Pathfinder, they have categories of how trained you are in particular skills. So when you say someone has a trained proficiency, what that means is when we go ahead and fill that in on the character sheet, is they're going to get a +2 plus their level to that particular skill that they're going to be working on. There's also expert. Expert is +4 plus their level. Master is +6 plus their level. And legendary is +8 plus their level. As you're creating a first level character, you're really only going to come across trained and expert. Master is much further down the line, and legendary is way, way, way further down the line. But it's just something to keep in mind when we're filling out our character sheet, and we're going to go over that when we get to that actual character creation itself. The next particular B that we're going to cover, the next letter in the alphabet, we're going to move on to B, which is backgrounds. Your backgrounds basically start on page 60 in the core rule book, and your backgrounds are universal to any ancestry. It's a huge list of backgrounds, and what you get from each one of your backgrounds, anyone that you select, is you're going to get 2 ability boosts, and you're also going to get a skill feat and some skill proficiencies out of it. So when you're doing your background, you basically want to pick one that suits the type of character you want to play. So we're going to go with our dwarf, and we're going to make him a fighter. So we're going to be looking for a background that one of the ability boosts definitely gives you a boost to your strength or possibly your dexterity, depending on the type of build you want to do. We're going to stick with something pretty basic, and we're going to go with strength. So we're going to kind of scroll through the list here, and we're going to see that a farmhand gives you either a strength or con on one of your ability boosts and one free. So we're going to go ahead and make our background a farmhand. Now, the skill feat that he gets with a farmhand, is an assurance skill for athletics. Now, assurance is basically allows you to substitute a roll with this assurance feat, which is a +10 plus your proficiency without additional modifiers. That's a lot of words thrown at you. So to break that down a little bit is when you're normally doing an athletics check, you're going to roll a d20, and you have to beat whatever DC is established for that particular roll. Well, with assurance, what you can do is you can use a +10 plus your proficiency minus modifiers. When I say minus modifiers, I mean minus modifiers from ability scores, other bonuses you might get from equipment. So this would just be on a level 1 character. If you have 18 strength, that would be not used in this category, would be a +4. So for assurance, you wouldn't use that +4. All you would use would be your train status in athletics, which would be a +3. Since you're level 1, you get your +2 plus your level. So as opposed to rolling dice and kind of taking your chances, you can just use your assurance skill and get a 13. Now at level 2, that is going to go to 14. At level 3, that goes to 15. Level 3 is kind of where your assurance comes into its own, because a lot of your I'm thinking in my head here, most of your DC checks are going to be 15 or above. So level 3 is really where that assurance comes in, but it's something to have in mind and kind of keep that in your head. One of the other things you're going to get out of your background is you're going to get 2 skill proficiencies, and they're going to be trained unless it says otherwise, but pretty much all just going to start out as trained and not expert. For the farmhand, we're going to get athletics, and we're also going to get a lore for farming. Those are things to keep track of on your sheet. If you would like something else, there are other strength-based backgrounds. There are also dex-based backgrounds you can go to, or if you're doing another character, go ahead and look for whatever type of ability boost that it could provide that would better suit your character. Now, the next little category we're going to go into is we're going to go into class. I'm not going to go into the classes as individuals. That's almost a separate video for each one of the classes. There are a lot of classes. So we're just going to kind of cover all the basic things that you get out of it. For your classes, you're going to pick one. They all have a key ability score that is they get a free boost for that particular class. Now we have a dwarf who's a farmhand, and he's a fighter. So as a fighter, he's going to get a boost to his strength or dex, because those are the 2 key ability traits for fighters. In that particular class that you selected, you're going to select, or you're going to read what your hit points per level are starting, which is going to be added to your ancestry. And for the class for the fighter, it is going to be a 10 plus your constitution modifier. The next thing you're going to get out of your class that you picked, and once again, we're going to look at fighter here, you're going to get the skills that you get just for being that class, and it's going to be 2 things. It's going to give you what your skills are, which is how trained you are in perception, saving throws, what type of fortitude bonus you're going to get. They are basically going to be expert in fortitude for a fighter, expert in reflex, and just trained in will. So those are going to be for your saving throws. You're also going to get what skills you get for being a part of that class. Now, for the class skills for a fighter, you're going to get athletics or acrobatics, and you can choose. You are also going to get 3 free skills plus whatever you get for your intelligence modifier. So when we were going through our ability scores up there, and you could go ahead and, as you're picking your boosts, if you kind of start out, everybody starts out with 10 in every single category, and then you have your ability flaw. So let's say you have a 10 in your ability and you haven't added anything. That means you're going to get 3 free skills. If you wanted to add ability boost to your intelligence, you can go ahead and bump that up, and you can go ahead and get more skills to start out with. All depends on your class. If you want to do a wizard as opposed to a fighter, then you would have boosted your intelligence score a lot, and you could have gotten more skills out of it. It's also going to tell you what type of weapons you're trained in, what type of armor you're trained in, as well as what your spells could be, or for this particular fighter, it's going to be a class feat. The fighter at level 1 gets class feat because most of your other classes get other skills. So most of your martial classes are going to start out with a class feat as opposed to spells and cantrips and those kind of things. For this particular fighter, we'll go ahead and pick exacting strike. So we have our Dwarven fighter, background farmhand, and his class feat that he picked was exacting strike. So we got A for ancestry, B for background, and we have C for class. Now the D, once again, and this is kind of important, is don't forget your 4 free ability boosts. So what this means is every character, regardless of anything you picked before, gets 4 free ability boosts. The one thing to note in all of these particular categories for ability boosts is you cannot double up per we'll say for this, since we're doing ABCs, per letter. So you can't pick strength twice for your ancestry. You can't, and in that vein, for these 4 free ability boosts, you can't pick, let's say, strength again twice for your 4 free ability boosts. They have to be separate abilities that you're selecting them for. So once you're done putting all that together, you can go ahead and finish filling out your character sheet and start fleshing out a little bit more of what your character, you're going to be picking what your gear is, what your weapons is, kind of picking your deities. This is and you can really start getting into the flavor of your character now that you have the basics down. So if you found this explanation helpful, I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe or like. Feel free to leave comments and let me know what you thought. If you have anything you'd like added to this, feel free, and I'll go ahead and I can add an addendum or put notes in the video itself. And as I stated before, I'm new to both YouTube and I'm new to Pathfinder itself. So if you have any corrections or anything that I stated wrong, I'd be more than happy to correct anything I've said that's incorrect. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you staying to the end. I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks.